Okay, so good morning, everybody. We are continuing on in our studies of Gemara of Eruvin. We are at Daf Lamed Tet Amud Aleph. We are continuing to talk about cases where we are dealing with Shabbos and Yom Tov, or Yom Tov and the Shabbos, and setting up multiple Eruvs. How would you do that, and why would it work, or why wouldn't it work in each given case? So, Gufa Amar of Yehuda, Erav Baraglav Yom Rishon, Marev Baraglav B'Sheni. So Rav Yehuda had mentioned earlier that if you made an Eruv on the first day by walking there for making your Eruv Tchumen, you could do the same thing for the other day. You do that for Shabbos, you do it for Yom Tov, and vice versa. Erev B'Pat Yom Rishon, Marev B'Pat Yom Sheni. And if you had made an Eruv using bread on the first day, you can do it again on the second day. So, meaning that you can set up two separate Eruvs as long as you do the same method both times. Erev b'pat b'rishon, marev b'raglav b'sheni. If you made an Eruv on the first day, albeit Shabbat or Yom Tov, you are allowed to. You're allowed to then the next day make an Eruv by walking to the place and then staying there after dark. Again, that's the two ways of making an Eruv Tchumen. One is by setting up your food in a location and setting that as your residence for Shabbos for Yom Tov. And the other way is by making the Eruv by walking there with your feet, and then waiting until it's dark. And then that was as long as when when the transition from into Shabbos or to Yom Tov occurs, you're in the right place. Then your Eruv is functional. So we say that Erev Baraglav Rishon Ein Ma'ar. But we said only works if you the first day, whether Shabbat or Yom Tov, and you had made an Erev with bread, then you can make an Erev by walking there on the second day. But Erev Baraglav Rishon Ein Ma'ar B'Pat B'Sheni. But if you made on the first day of Shabbat or Yom Tov, you made an Erev Tchumen by walking there, you can't make an Erev with bread on the second day. She'ein Ma'arvin B'Tchila B'Pat, because you can't establish an Erev for the first time with bread on Yom Tov for Shabbat or Shabbat for Yom Tov because you are then preparing for one on the other day. So therefore you can't start anew from scratch doing that. Okay, so that's the statement we have, and now we're going to analyze that statement of Rav Yehuda. So Erev B'Pat B'Yom Rishon, Marev B'Pat B'Yom Sheni. So if you made your Erev the first day with bread, you can again use it the next day. So Amar Shmuel Ulotapat, and Shmuel says you can even use the same bread. Amar Rashi Daikanam Matnitin. You could also infer that based on our Mishnah. Duktani Ketadu Osa, as in our original Mishnah was to say. Molicho Barishon Umach Shichalav V'Notla Uvalo. Because in the Mishnah it says, how would you make your Erev? You take it with you on the first day. You wait till it gets dark while you're holding the bread, and then you go back. B'Sheni Mach Shechalav Ochlo Uvalo. And similarly on the second day, you wait till it's dark, and then you can eat it, and then you can return back to where you were before. So all these things seem to imply that you're able to do it the first day to the second day and vice versa. So Rabbanan Dilma. Okay, so Rabbanan Dilma Hatam Etatova Etatova, but and the Chachamim who wouldn't hold of Shmuel, what would they say? They might say that in our Mishnah, it's not saying that's how you're supposed to do it. They're simply giving us an idea of how to, not that you should ideally do so, but they're giving you an idea for how to work it out. That way you are using only one Erev for both days, but not that that's your only option. Rather, that they're simply telling you the way that you could do it. Okay? So now we're okay. So we finished that Gemara. Now we're going to part that's very directly relating to Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so we have the Mishnah says Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rosh Hashanah Shehaya Yarei Shema Titaver Ma'arev Adam Shnei Eruvin. Omer Eruv Marishon Mizrach Ubashen L'Ma'arav. So we're talking about the case of right now with Rosh Hashanah. You're not sure whether it's going to be 1 day or 2 days. So again, this is talking about. So in terms of the way that the calendar is done. So originally, from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, right, from whenever from Egypt. So the first mitzvah that the Jews got while they were still in slavery was the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the months. So it had been done with 2 Eidim testifying, and then a Beit didn't determine that now this is the new month. But the issue with that is that we have witnesses determining what the month is that there's a possibility of it being on different days. Then it could either be 1 day or 2 days, because when you're calculating the month, the 30th day will always be will always be considered to be Rosh Chodesh. The question is it Rosh Chodesh and is day 30 of the previous month, or is it day 1 of the following month? So when it came time for Rosh, so every month was either 29 or 30. You didn't know until it happened. So back when we were still doing that, and there were still relying on witnesses to come, because really the length of I think we're trying to talk about the exact length of the month, how it's I could look up how later. It's 29 and I think and a third, and there's a whole bunch of fractions that I can read off to you. But basically, it's not quite 29. It's around 29 and a half, I believe, and a lot of more fractions after that is the length of the month. So therefore, it basically alternates between 29 and 30 days on average. But the issue is that basically it's also dependent on the testimony of witnesses. If 2 witnesses had seen the new moon the previous evening and come or that very evening and testified in Beit Din, so they have to have had enough time to have gotten to Beit in order to testify about what had occurred the previous night. So in order for that would take some time. And Beit didn't only meet during the day, so then at night you would never know, and then come daylight, pretty early you might know, depending on how close the people who saw it lived to where the Beit didn't happen to be at the time. So now we're talking about a case where Beit Din are currently still set up the months. For more on this, I highly recommend. My family we have the minhag of actually reading through the Mishnayot of Rosh Hashanah, wondering every meal on Rosh Hashanah. So there in the Mishnah of Rosh Hashanah, it describes in detail how the process works. So again, if you'd like to give that a shot this Rosh Hashanah, I strongly recommend it. That basically most of the Master have it if you have it translated Master, also has the translated Mishnah too. That way everybody at the table can read a Mishnah. It's very nice, English or Hebrew, and that way everybody can add a little bit of learning to the meals. Also, it helps understand the context a little bit of what used to be. So,
Rabbi, can I ask one question? Just
yes.
jumping. It's just a basic question. I just want to make it clear. So, my understanding about an Eruv is that we can carry during Yom Tov. But
correct.
So are we strictly talking about Eruv Techumim?
Correct. We're talking about an Eruv Techumim.
Because we're not allowed to walk beyond a certain limit, even on Yom Tov.
Correct. So for Rosh Hashanah, for instance, so again, we'll talk about Rosh Hashanah. Let's say this coming Sunday. So there you don't have to worry about carrying, but you still have to worry about, assuming you're carrying for a purpose, it's not a problem. But you still have to worry about the tchum. So
that's why we can blow shofar on the second day.
Correct. That's why we blow shofar for the second day, not the first day, because there's only an issue carrying on Shabbos, but not on Yom Tov. More on that, Jared Rabbah. We will get to that in when we get to Gemara Sukkah and Gemara Rosh Hashanah. We'll get to that more in detail.
Thank you.
But excellent question. Yes. So we're talking about Yom Tov and Eruv. We're not talking about Eruv Techumim, though. though for modern day purposes, actually having your Eruv Chatzerot also serves to help you with your Eruv Tchumen, because there are cases when the Eruv serves as a helpful wall to extend the distance that you normally be able to walk based on the city limits. So you could, in theory, be using an Eruv Chatzerot, but normally you wouldn't go through the effort, because it's not like the Mishnahs don't talk about Eruv Tchumen, and that's what it's talking about being ma'arid with your legs, because that's something meaning that you walk to a place and then wait there until Shabbos enters. That's something unique that you can use for Eruv Tchumen, but for Eruv Chatzerot you need to use food. You can't do it with your feet. So we're mostly talking about Eruv Tchumen. When there's a crossover, I will let you know. So now we'll go to the Mishnah again. If anything is unclear, please let me know, and I'll gladly explain more. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rosh Hashanah Shaya Yarei Sheman Titaber, Ma'arev L'Adam Shnei Eruvin, Omer, Erevi Barishon L'Mizrach, V'Sheni L'Ma'arav. So if you're not sure what day Rosh Hashanah is going to be, and you're afraid it might be a 2-day Rosh Hashanah, so a person can make 2 Eruvs and say my Eruv for the first day is to the east, and the Eruv for the second day is to the west, or Barishon L'Ma'arav, V'Sheni L'Mizrach. Or you could say that on the first day my Eruv is to the west, and the second day it's to the east. Eruvi Barishon V'Sheni Iri. On the first day, my this is my Eruv, but the second day I want to be as if I am the people of my town. Eruvi B'Sheni Uvarishon Kivnei Iri V'Lo Hodu Lo Chachamim. So then he said, he said the reverse case of I want to be like my city. I want to have my Eruv on the second day and be like the city on the first day. So the Chachamim didn't agree to this opinion of his, saying that you can't divide Rosh Hashanah the way that he was dividing it. So Rabbi Yehuda says more. V'od amar Rabbi Yehuda matnei adam al halkalkala b'yom tov rishon v'ochla b'sheni. So Rabbi Yehuda also says, we're talking about conditions and whether or not it's one day of Yom Tov, 2 days of Yom Tov, and they're the same day or not. So that he says that you're allowed to make a condition when you're separating out your Trumot Masrot from your basket of unseparated fruits on the first day, saying that if today is right, that, and then you can eat on the second day. Meaning that what would the condition be? Gemara will go into it more. Basically, you'd say that if today is Yom Tov, then the Trumot will be separated as of night, as of when Yom Tov is over, so that way you can have it the next day. And if today's not Yom Tov, then it's separated as of now. Similar, BAYT /the Barishon Teachel B'Sheni. Similarly, it says for Rosh Hashanah specifically, if you have an egg laid on the first day, you can eat it on the second day. Below Chachamim. The Chachamim disagreed with him on both of these in regards to Rosh Hashanah as well. Rabbi Joseph ben Hyrcanus Omer Ha'over Lifnei HaTeva B'Yom Tov Shal Rosh Hashanah Omer Hachlitzenu Hashem Elokeinu Et Yom Rosh Chodesh Hazeh Im Hayom Im L'Machar. So Rabbi Joseph ben Hyrcanus says, so if you happen to be davening for the Yamud on Rosh Hashanah, what are you supposed to say when you're in the middle of the prayer? When you're talking about the day of Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Hashanah, so you say, may God strengthen us today, the day that is the first of the that is of the new month, whether it be today or tomorrow. And then on the second day, Ulamachar Omer Im Hayom Im Emesh. And but the second day you'd say today or the day before. Lo Hudol Chachamim. Chachamim say no, that's incorrect. So the question, so there's a lot of so as far as how all these logics work out, so basically it comes down to largely, do you consider them to be one day, or do you consider them to one long day or 2 different days, as well as the degree of what type of doubt it is it, and so So, for instance, if you're really not sure which day it is completely, then you end up with Rabbi Joseph and Hyrcanus, who says that we should be saying the whole thing is in doubt. But the Chum didn't agree with that, and for why they don't agree, we'll get to that as well. So now we're going to start breaking down the different parts of the Mishnah and determining which parts the Chachamim didn't like and why they didn't. So we're going to start at the very beginning which is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion of the making two Eruvs, one for each day of Yom Tov separately. So man lo hodu lo. So what do we mean when the Chachamim said lo hodu lo? Which part of this statement they're referring to? Amar Rav, right? So who is the one who was arguing with Rabbi Yehuda? So Amar Rav, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is arguing with Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, the linear bright. The Modim Chachamim Rabbi Eliezer, Rosh Hashanah, Shaya Yarei Shem Taber, Marev Adam Shnei Eruvin. Omer Ervi Berishon Mizrach, Vashini Lamarav, Berishon Lamarav, Vashini Mizrach, Ervi Berishon, Vashini Kveneiri, Ervi Bashini Berishon Kveneiri, Rabbi Yossi Yoser. So how do we know that the dissenting opinion in that's listed as the Chachamim, that's Lo Chachamim, isn't actually the Chachamim, and it's actually Rabbi Yossi instead? So we know that based on this other Braita, which states that that's also mentioned in Tosefta that if it's, again, this parallels very much our Mishnah, where it says that if it's Rosh Hashanah and you're afraid it's going to end up being 2 days, you can make an Eruv for the first day, for two different Eruvin, one for the first day, one for the second day, and you say that if on the first day it's in the east, second day in the west, or first day in the west, second day in the east, or you can say that I want my Eruv to work the first day, and the second day I want to be like the people of my city and not have an Eruv to come in at all. And also, you can also say that I want an Eruv to come in for the second day, but not for the first day. I want it to be like the place I'm residing. Rabbi Yossi is the one who says that this setting up to Eruvin is no good. So that's what Rabbi Yossi is the Chachamim in our Mishnah. So Amar Lahen Rabbi Yossi. So then Rabbi Yossi said to the Chachamim, so then Rabbi Yossi now turns to the Chachamim, who said that you can treat the days differently, and says, asks the following question: Don't you agree that if Adam came on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, i.e., on day 30 of the month of Elul, for mincha and above, that shenoagin oto hayom kodesh l'machar kodesh. Basically, so don't you say that here? So basically, even though in theory you could have the witnesses could come at any point during the day to just say that today is kodesh and that tomorrow, and then therefore the next day would not be. But so normally it used to be that they were able to do it the whole day until Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had a takana that actually that they did that after the Levium had made a mistake when they were saying the Shir Shel Yom, they said the wrong one. So then they were made a takana that they can't come from the time of mincha, meaning in the afternoon and onwards. Right, for mincha gedola. So that's 6.5 hours into the day, or Midrash at 6, Midrash 6.5 hours in the day. So at that point, they would close down the basin, and even if they came afterwards, it wouldn't matter because we say that that's not enough time to, and they basically wouldn't accept the testimony. So the question is, well, how could you do that? So so why is that? So why are you treating the first day as Yom Tov as well as the second day? Right. So then we're saying that no matter what, if they had come, in the afternoon, that wouldn't count. So, right. So that would imply that actually the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are considered to be both actually the same sanctity, and they're one holiday, and that's why the Chaim were kaveh it that way, and said that we're going to make it into 2 days as opposed to 1 day that year, and that's what they decided. So what would they? So should you agree that that means that you can't start separating between the two of them because we treat them as one long day? So Rabbanan, so what the Rabbanan answer? Now we're on Lama Tema Bet. No, the answer is there on the first day in that case where we're treating the first day as Yom Tov. It's not really Midoraita. Rather, it's Midrabanan, so people don't end up demeaning the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and because it very well could happen the next year that the Eidim will come. They might come earlier, and also again it'll take a while for the news to get out, and we don't want people to start denigrating the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and people treating it like it's not actually a holiday when it really might end up being. So there, or vice versa, right? Or they might make fun of the second day of the second day. Then, if really the first day was it, the second day would not be. So because we don't want people to be desecrating desecrating Rosh Hashanah, therefore they declare that it's going to end up being 2 days. And that will be, so it's not a question of is it one sanctity or 2 sanctities, can you separate or not? That's more of a question of it's a din drabanan, because we don't want people to take Rosh Hashanah lightly. Okay, so that was the first statement of Rabbi Yehuda. So now we're going on to another statement about the Rabbi Yehuda from the Mishnah of Odamar Rabbi Yehuda about this and it'll be about this case of the kalkala, about separating the truma and the maasrot, as well as the condition about the egg that was made on the first day of Yom Tov into the second day of Yom Tov. Again, we're referring to Rosh Hashanah. How these things play out for Yom Tov Sheni Shagolio is a different story. So that's not subject to discussion right now. Because for there you're more allowed to use conditions, but we'll get there when we get there. So now I explained the opinion, what Rabbi Yehuda's opinion was in the Mishnah. So, and then the Gemara says it's Tzricha, and we need to have this in addition to, we didn't have all the things listed in the Mishnah about the Eruvin and about Tevel and about the egg. So the Iyash Me'ina and Rosh Hashanah, and if it had only stated one of them, that of Rosh Hashanah, B'ha Kamar Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Delo Ka'avid Midi. So we said that for the first day of Rosh Hashanah because nobody's actually would be doing anything actively on Yom Tov itself. So the case of Rosh Hashanah doing 2 Eruvs, so it's not like you're clearly doing any action or anything that's necessarily usher. You just moved around a loaf of bread, or you went for a walk. It's not clearly they did anything wrong. But if you're separating out Truma and Masrot, right, that's a quite clear action with where you're separating things out, and that is problematic because people will know what you're doing, and that's a problem. The Shmina and Hani Tar. So, Kavimidi, Aval Kalkala, the Metzger and Tivla, Ema Modelu Urlabanov. You might have said that by the case of the basket because, it looks like it very much looks and it's clearly that you're separating things out. Therefore, maybe you'd say that the Chachamim would, that Rabbi Yehuda would agree with the Chachamim and say that there's a problem. So, therefore, it's teaching us separately to teach you that they're both, Rabbi Yehuda allows both, and that Chachamim wouldn't necessarily allow have issues with both as well. So if you only have the first 2 cases, that of the making conditional errors, one for each day, as well as the case of the basket and separating out Truma and Masrot on condition of which day it is. So why would you say these 2 work? Because there was no we never made any Isser, any Xer Derbanans on them because they're not as chamor of a sin if you were to violate them. So therefore, we wouldn't have made any Isser Derbana for them. Above Beit, Tikal migza mishum perot hanoshrin mishum mashkin shazavu. Emamod julul rabbanon sricha. So we also made a distinction because, as opposed to the case of Eruv and Tavel, where the Isser that you would have potentially violated isn't so. The Xer Rabban that would be in effect would only prevent you from having violated a Xer Midrabanan. It will not have been, you wouldn't have necessarily been violating for sure any Isser Midoraita, as opposed to by BAYT, what are we worried about? We're worried about Perot and Oshru, Mishumashkin Shazavu, which can lead to which is backwards, because there's the egg. It's because here the question is: are they protection? Are they one large din d'Rabbanan with different elements to it, or is it a din d'Rabbanan protecting a din d'Oraita? So for the case of not doing the two Eruvin, or not doing the Tevel, so those are all things that you can't do midrabanan, as opposed to now where it's where again the Zera Paradonostrum about fruit that may fall off, or about the fruit, the juices that ooze out of the fruit on the festival. So those are potentially those Zera are all protecting against Isurim Doraita. So maybe you'd say that they would agree that the Chomim and Rabbi Yehuda would agree in that case. So therefore you need to teach them all to say that that Rabbi Yehuda allows all of these cases. The Chomim forbid all of them. So that's why we have to do it like that. So Tanya is learned in a Braita. Ketzad Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Man Nadam Al Kalkala B'Yom Tov Rishon V'Chla B'Sheni. So as we learned in a Braita, how Rabbi Yehuda what Rabbi Yehuda said? So how would you properly do what Rabbi Yehuda said about the making the conditions about the basket? So Adam Al Kalkala B'Yom Tov Rishon V'Chla B'Sheni. So wwhat is that? The making the condition on the first day and the second day. What's the exact formation that I should be saying to make sure that I don't make a mistake? Because you don't want to be eating tevel because you didn't do it right, or violating the derabbanan, you didn't do it right. So what am I supposed to say exactly? So how you lefanav shtei kakolot shel tevel. So if you had in front of you two baskets of tevel, omer im hayom chol umachar kodesh hey zu truma al zu im hayom kodesh umachar chol. Aim bidvarei klub. So what do you say? So the formulation is as follows. If you have two baskets in front of you that are currently Tevel, so you say that if today is a ordinary day and tomorrow is actually the day that's really Yom Tov, then you say that you say that the truma from this basket will go into the other basket. But if today is Yom Tov and tomorrow is Yom Tov, then I didn't say anything. So you say it wouldn't work. And then you would declare for it that the area that you designated is considered to be where the truma is, and then you would set that area aside, that other basket aside. So we haven't actually separated anything from one location to another one, but we're saying that in that basket will contain the truma. Okay, so that's being done on the first day of Yom Tov. What do you say on the second day of Rosh Hashanah? Im hayom chol tehei zo truma al zo. And then the next day you say, if today is not Yom Tov, and yesterday is, then let this basket be truma for that basket. Im hayom kodesh ein b'dvarei klum. But if today is Yom Tov, then I didn't say anything. V'korei el Hashem v'chla. Then you also designate the basket of truma. Then you eat the other basket as truma has never been separated on a weekday. Rabbi Yossi Yoser. And Rabbi Yossi would forbid that practice of making the conditions on each day about being in the previous day. And because he says that it's problematic because that's not quite the, because again, even though it is midrabanan, it's even though you want to say it's because of doubt, he still says you should. That's an invaluable practice. So now I told everybody we'd be getting to it soon, and here it is. Rabbi Yossi saying that similarly you can't make these conditions on the second day of Yom Tov Shalgolio, meaning it's not just a question about Rosh Hashanah; it's also an issue for the rest of Sudiyantis as well. So again, so depending on which opinion you hold, right? So that would mean that Rabbi Yossi says it's a problem for all Yom Tovim, and that would also mean that Rabbi Yehuda would be stating that you can do these conditional things on for every single Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah included. Okay. So now we're going to get a story that hopefully illustrates the difference between the first day and the second day of Yom Tov. So Ahu Bar Tavia, the Atal Ve'Reish Galuta, the Itzab Yom Rishon Shalgolio, the V'Ishchat B'Yom Tov Sheni. So there's a young deer that was brought to the house of the Reish Galuta, who is the exilarch, the head of the Jews in diaspora, and it was captured by a non-Jew on the first day, and then they slaughtered it on the second day. So the problem here is that it was something that wasn't right. So the issue is that one of the days would be Yom Tov, wouldn't, because again we're talking about Chutz La'aretz, about the suffix which day it is. So what's the case here? So can we eat it or not? They're wondering. So Rav Nachman, Rav Chisda achlu, Rav Sheshet lo achal. Rav Nachman, Rav Chisda, and Rav Sheshet were all at the Reish Galuta's house for this Yom Tov. So Rav Nachman and Rav Chisda ate it. Rav Sheshet didn't eat it. So Amar Rav Nachman, my Eved Leila Rav Sheshet lo achil b'sper b'tetavia. So then Rav Nachman said, what could I do for Rav Sheshet if he doesn't eat deer meat? So meaning he's saying like, hey, so Rav Nachman basically says, slightly in jest to Rav Nachman, to Rav Sheshet, what can I get you if you're not going to eat the deer meat? So Amar Le Rav Sheshet, v'hechi echol tani isi. So the Rosh Hashanah says, no, it's not that I don't like it. It's that I can't eat it because what about? Don't you know what Isi stated? Amri la Isi Tani, and then he explained to him what. Or so that's one way of saying it. Or maybe he said is in form of a question. That this is what Isi says. Tani v'chanaya Rabbi Yossi Oser Shnei Mutom Shogolio. And so too. Right, so what did Isi teach us? He taught us about that which Rabbi Yossi stated, that Rabbi Yossi would prohibit the doing conditional today versus yesterday, even for Yom Tov Sheni Shalgolio. So that would imply that you really can't do that. Even though either way it should be fine, because either it was captured on the first day and today's not, or it was on Yom Tov by a non-Jew. Now it's much for me to have it because it was already prepared from before, and so then either way I should be covered. So right? But Rabbi Yossi says no. Like 2 days of Yom Tov, we don't let you do from one to the other one or do the conditional things. Like that's not allowed according to Rabbi Yossi. So I follow. So from Nachman, so Rav Sheshet is saying I follow Rabbi Yossi, and that's why I'm not eating. Like what are you getting on my case for? So Amarava Umay Kusha. So the Rabbi says, what's the problem? Til Malchika Amar. So maybe we could solve then that maybe we're wondering why did Rav Sheshet have this issue? Couldn't you simply have explained the statement of Rabbi Yossi of Isi that Rabbi Yossi follows? Rabbi Yossi Oser B'Shneim Tovim Shel Rosh Hashanah B'Gola. So maybe you misheard. Maybe we were misquoting Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Maybe when he said in the 2 days of Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah that are in Chutz La'aretz, as opposed to the ones that are as opposed to Yom Tov Sheni Shalgolio, which aren't the same thing. So Ihachi Shalgolio, Bagola Mibaile. What do you mean by to say that? So that would mean that. But then the obvious response to what Rava states by everybody else is, wait, but it doesn't say. Doesn't it say Shalgolio? What do you mean Bagola Mibaile? It should have said. Bagola, if it meant what you said, Shalgolio, we all know the Yom Tov Sheni Shalgolio refers to first and second day of Yom Tov, the doubling of every Yom Tov. 4, Rosh Hashanah, not for everything besides Rosh Hashanah. 4, the ones that occur that the doubling that we have for Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. So that's what we're referring to. We like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur never get doubled. Are different story altogether. So what are you talking about? That's not the same thing at all. Rosh Hashanah and the Shlosh Regalim aren't the same thing. So why are you comparing them? So Amar Avasi. So they're like, so that's a bad defense. Let's try again. So Amar Avasi. My kushya. So what was the problem? I've got another way to solve this. Bill Malchik Kamar. Maybe meant as follows. So Chani Rabbi Yossi Oseh Yisur Shteim Im Tovim Shagoliot Yeshem Tovim Rosh Hashanah L'Rabbanan Desharu. So couldn't you rephrase Rabbi Yossi's opinion as stating that Rabbi Yossi treated the prohibition of when there's 2 days of Yom Tov in Chutz La'aretz the same way that he would treat on Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah according to the Chachamim who permit it. So which implies that Rabbi Yossi doesn't actually hold it's usher, because he's not disagreeing with Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, he's siding with the Chachamim. So therefore, you could read it either way, and therefore it's unclear what Rabbi Yosef's opinion truly is, and therefore you should be allowed to eat that meat. So Ashkenazi Rav Sheshet Laro Bar Shmuel. So now Rav Sheshet now goes to find Rav Bar Shmuel is trying to get to the bottom of this case. So Amarle Tani Mar Midi B'Kedushot. So he says, has Master learned anything in regard to the 2 sanctities of Shabbat and Yom Tov? Is it 1 day or 2 days? Because right now Rav Sheshet is like everybody's busy, not liking what I'm saying. So I want to make sure that I miss anything. What really should I do? So Amarle. So then he had asked. So what did Rabbi Shmuel say to him? Amalei Tanina Moder Rabbi Yossi B'Shneim Tovim Shagoliot. So he says, I quoted him the following statement that Rabbi Yossi agrees in regards to Yom Tov Sheni Shagoliot that you're allowed to do the conditions as are mentioned in our Mishnah. So Amalei, so Sheshet told back to Rabbi Bar Shmuel. So then Rav Sheshet says, if you have to meet Rav Nachman or Rav Chisda, because we got this whole argument, over Yom Tov, so don't tell them that, because then they're gonna embarrass. Then I'll never be able to live it down. They're gonna embarrass me forever based on the fact that I didn't know this and I should, and that they were actually right all along. So. So let's see. So now we have Rav Ashi. We'll continue on in the same line, the same story. I'm Rav Ashi. The Didi Amar Li Amemar Hahut Partavia Lab it's today. It's done. Ela Mechut L'Tchum Ata. So Rav Ashi says no. The issue isn't that I was told by Rav Amemar. The issue isn't a question about do you trap it or not on the first day versus the second day. Ela Mechut L'Tchum Ata. Rather, because it came from outside of the Tchum. And that's what happened. Is that it's a different isser. So man de'achal savar haba b'shvil Yisrael zeh muchal Yisrael acher. And the question is not a question about one kedusha or two kedushot. It's a question of if you violated a prohibition for if a non-Jew violated a prohibition for a Jew. So the question is it usher for the Jew who is done for, or for the other one as well, right? So the person who ate it thought that if it was brought for one Jew, then another Jew could eat it instead, right? So then, even though it might be forbidden for the Reish Luta to have done so, but me to do it because it wasn't done for me, it was done for the Reish Luta, not for me. Therefore, it would be allowed for me. The one who would refuse to eat said. A different logic. Called the Ata the Reish Luta, Adat the Chulon Rabbananate. The other one says no. You can't say that it wasn't brought for you. It's because he brought it for his guests. So the non-Jew brought it for everybody who's going to be at the Reish Luta's house, and you're included. So you can't say that use the argument of the non-Jew did it for somebody else, and therefore it's not us or Rabbanan for me to use it. They're like, no, it's us Rabbanan for you to use it because the non-Jew did it specifically for you on Yom Tov, violating an Isser Dora, meaning the non-Jew did it, what for you would have been an Isser Dora, right? So therefore you can't benefit from it on that Shabbat or Yom Tov. Then wait, but if that's really the case, then what do you talk? Then what's the whole story we had after? But Rav Sheshet going to talk to Rabbi Bar Shmuel about the whole story. So lo yud dvar me'olam. They're like, no, actually, that last part of the story was made up. That never actually happened. So the answer is there's two different versions of the story of how it went down, and depending on how it went down, we would have different understandings, halakha l'maaseh, as to of whether or not you're allowed to do the new conditions on the rest of the days of Yom Tov that aren't Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so now I'm gonna. Okay, so we'll pick up from the case of the Lefet tomorrow. So now let's just let's summarize what we've covered so far. Hopefully, to try and make sure things are clear. So again, since yesterday we're talking about making. This whole parak is talking about making conditional arrows, right? One's the north, one's the south, or the east, like different directions based on things that will potentially occur. So we started today the Mishnah that's talking about the conditional effects of that would apply to Rosh Hashanah, whether Rosh Hashanah is one sanctity or two sanctities, and how that would affect your making an arrow from one direction or two directions, as well as how it would affect your ability to do conditions in terms of separating out Truma and Masrot, also for conditions about being able to eat the BAYT on Yom Tov, eating the egg that was born on the first day of Yom Tov and the second day of Yom Tov. So, and then we got to the Gemara. We're talking about playing out the whole story of which opinion is which. We got the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who seems to always forbid it no matter what, and we got some reasonings as to why it's forbidden. So one possibility is the question of is Rosh Hashanah considered to be 1 day or 2 days? And then the other opinion has something to do with it being 1 day or 2 days. The other opinion was that it was based, meaning is Rosh Hashanah one long day or the two separate kedushot? The other opinion was that it's not based on that you could do two separate days, and it's all based on a doubt. But the issue is that the reason why you can't do these preparations or these conditions is because we don't want people to treat the Rosh Hashanah lightly. We don't want them to treat 1 day of Yom Tov as if it's not really a day of Yom Tov. Say, oh, it's just a doubt anyways. That's not true. You can't do that. That's not okay. So similarly, then we get to this. Then came to the story involving 2 days of Yom Tov in Chutz La'aretz, and the question is it the same as Rosh Hashanah? Is it not the same as Rosh Hashanah? Is it one kedusha or not? And then we had the story about the trapping of the deer in the ritual of his house, and how it fell out, in both directions. And with the story following that about Rav Sheshet and how he wouldn't eat while other people would. And then we were trying to defend Rav Sheshet's actions as to was it based on the argument of is it about one sanctity or two sanctities, or is it based on a din d'Rabbanan of having a non-Jew having prepared for you on Yom Tov, and then that depends on the version of the story what the conclusion is. But either way, we have learned a little bit about the questions of doubts about between this Yom Tov first day of Yom Tov, the second day of Yom Tov, and also Rosh Hashanah specifically. Is it one sanctity or two? And finally, we also mentioned the very important concept of there being an Isser D'Rabbanan of not wanting people to degrade the first day of Yom Tov versus the second day of Yom Tov, whether it be Mishum Safek or Mishum, they're actually one kedusha. So either way, you don't want people degrading them, which is very relevant nowadays between Israel and Chutz, because a lot of times we know because in Israel they have 1 day for the rest for not except for Rosh Hashanah. They have 1 day, whereas in Chutz they have 2 days, and it's important to remember that it's not the 2 days is not simply because we don't know. It's like no, it's actually a full din d'Rabbanan that you're supposed to treat the second day of Yom Tov fully like the first day, and it's very important that people treat the days of Yom Tov properly, and we shouldn't come to degrade them like, you don't really need it. It's like no, they're both necessary, and just like and similarly, nobody would say, Hanukkah is just a din d'Rabbanan. We should stop doing that. So similarly, you shouldn't degrade any of the rest of the laws of the Rabbanan, even though they're Midrabanan and not Midoraita, because it's also important to follow what the rabbis have enacted as well.
Correct. Thank you.
Good morning.
Have a good day, everybody.
Ready? Hopefully we'll tomorrow same time as well, I believe. If somebody can't make it, because I know that there's because Slichot are long, so I'll be uploading the recording to YouTube on Toronto Torah's YouTube channel, as well as to IU Torah. If you can find links to it from the Toronto Torah website, if that's easier for you. I'll also hopefully send out an email tomorrow with also links to the drop-in for the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah in advance, in case somebody would like to get a head start on those.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Right. Yes.
Just reading the art scroll here, and I note it says that Rav Yossi, that in the case of the 2 Yomim of Yom Tov, he holds the lenient view is correct, and that the 2 days are regarded as separate. Why is it a lenient approach?
So if they're treated as two separate days, it's considered to be leniency, because you can do the conditional things between one day of Yom Tov and the other day of Yom Tov. It means that you could say that if today is and tomorrow isn't, and so you can make 2 separate errors as opposed to 1 error for both days. It also allows you to do if you forgot to separate your Truma to Masro, you can decide between the first day and the second day. That means that you could, if you have 2 baskets of tevel, it means that you could definitely eat one of them, which is very helpful to be able to eat. And we also mentioned about the Beit Sachanolda, meaning that if something had come into the world, let's say if you had if your hen was laying eggs or there's a whole bunch of other things besides an egg, but eggs is simply the best example. Things that hadn't been ready for you to eat that are now ready for you to eat, it allows you to now eat them, which is things that according to the other opinion of it being treated like it's one long day, you would not be able to do any of those conditions.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, Shkoch.
Have a good day.
All right.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.